If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another album review for you guys. This time, I'm talking about the 13th studio offering from Tampa, Florida power metalers Kamelot with The Awakening. So this came out on St. Paddy's Day on Napalm Records, and yeah, I've been familiar with this band in the past. Like, I've heard songs like March of Mephisto back when Roy Khan was their vocalist. Now they got Tommy, and I cannot pronounce his last name, on vocals now. But yeah, this band's just got, they're based out of Tampa. They were formed in Tampa back in '91, but have a lot of international musicians. Like, I believe you have a German keyboardist. I believe he's from Germany. And, of course, a Swedish vocalist, with a couple of Americans still in there. Thomas Youngblood, one of the originals, I believe he's the guitarist. So, yeah, you still got some American blood in here. But, yeah, what I always like about whenever I do hear Kamelot is that it almost takes the best parts of what they hear from the European power metal sound and mix it with a little bit of the heavier sound of American power metal. And even at times can get about as dark as, like, their contemporaries also from Tampa, Iced Earth. But only Kamelot's just a little more epic, a little more symphonic, and perhaps even a little more progressive at times. But here with The Awakening, like, pretty much this album, I would say, is straight up symphonic power metal. Like, there's a few moments of prog that do show up on this album, particularly in the songs The Looking Glass, as well as Blood Moon. Like, those two tracks do have a little bit of a progressive flair whenever it gets into, like, some odd time shifts. But for the most part, this is pretty much just straightforward, epic, symphonic power metal all the way through. Kicking things off with, well, you have an intro and an outro track, which was more or less like symphonic orchestrational pieces, or orchestral pieces, I should say. But then it gets to the true opening track, The Great Divide. Right out of the gate, epic guitars and like a power metal D-beat stomp, but with those cool symphonic orchestral moments in the background. And really, these symphonic moments do more to complement the actual music that's being portrayed on this album in terms of the guitars, the bass, the drums, and the vocals, and even the keyboards. But there's even a riff that shows up here on The Great Divide, and there are quite a few riffs on this album that have some chug to them, or they gallop along pretty damn well. Eventide begins with like almost electronic soundscapes, and then it gets into some intense and borderline thrash metal riffs a little bit, because it gets a little bit faster, and it just feels like you're about to prepare for a big battle, which honestly I could kind of see part of this story being all about warriors trying to awaken their moon queen and fight for her honor to save their kingdom, so to speak. And Eventide certainly kind of gives that vibe off pretty well, and even a huge breakdown comes in to like really emphasize the riffs. Then you get to One More Flag in the Ground, which is a pretty much a groovy track that kind of almost feels like a bit of a metalcore vibe. Like, the grooves and some of these chugging riffs kind of make me think of metalcore bands like Killswitch Engage, and maybe even like As They Lay Dying or Unearth, like bands along those lines, but played through a symphonic power metal filter, but with some guitar solos. Opus of the Night, Ghost Requiem, has this like very mysterious intro, and then it gets back into like more epic and adventurous riffs and D-beats, more of that thrash influence that has kind of become accustomed to a lot of American power metal bands. It's bringing a little bit of that old school thrash influence here and there, and the riffing and the speeds. And I love the sudden mood shift that you get in the bridge on this track, and even that fading ending. Midsummer's Eve is pretty much like a dark, folky ballad almost, but with, again, more of those symphonic elements on top, but I like how it kind of focuses more on atmosphere and creating a mood rather than heaviness to kind of break up, like, the two halves of the album, kind of be like the middle section of the album to be like, hey, let's have a breather, and then we'll get back to the crazy shit. Blood Moon immediately gets intense with the strings and even a riff that felt very girthy, which I know if my buddy Scott is watching this and he hears me use the word girthy, he's gonna piss himself laughing, because he had never heard girthy before. In fact, he found Minecraft diamonds, and they're girthy too! But I digress a lot. But yeah, you do get like a really cool melody lead line on top of a really cool gallop, and this was one of the tracks where you get a little bit of that progressive influence. And then you get into Night Sky, which continues a little bit in the similar vein of Blood Moon, where it gets into like a heavy riff but a galloping rhythm. And pretty much that gallop is felt all throughout the whole song. Then you get to Looking Glass, once again bringing in a little bit of that prog flair, and it kind of made me think of Dream Theater a little bit at times. But dramatic atmosphere, riff work, and D beats pretty much immediately. And I love how after the song begins, the guitars and the drums do a great job at building tension. And then even the bridge and the guitar solo we get on this song has a hard rock feel to it, which was really, really cool. And it has a little shred, too. New Babylon, which might be my favorite track of the album, because it starts off with some, like, amazing operatic vocals done by both Melissa Bonney from Ad Infinitum and Simone Simons from Epica, who, Simone Simons, I am a fan of her vocals, and Epica, I do enjoy from time to time. But this track has like a marching rhythm going on, as well as the riffs, and it almost feels like the final battle is about to commence in the story, but has some more sorrowful moments, and even death metal vocals show up on this track too. Then you get into the song Willow, which is primarily, like the first half, it's more of like a somber piano and string piece, almost like a memoir to a fallen warrior's mother. And then the second half, when that second chorus comes in, then you get the riffs, the bass, and the drums, and this is almost like a doom metal song, like it's really slow. And then you get to the true closing track, not the outro instrumental, but the true closer, My Pantheon Forevermore. Picks up off as like a continuation from Willow with that more darker sound, but then this song just kind of perfectly encapsulates everything about this album. You get some D beats, you get some gallops, feels like the epic finale to a big battle, but there is some triumph and tragedy attached. Catchy riffs throughout, and even the hook here, like there are some big hooks on this album, but this hook kind of combines all of the hooks into one. It has some epic qualities, but it also has some darker qualities to it, and even a big death metal, thrash metal inspired gallop shows up towards the end. But when I'm talking about the hooks, like tracks like The Great Divide, One Flag in the Ground, Opus of the Night, Night Sky, and New Babylon, are mostly epic hooks. Like they feel adventurous and you're ready to just go out and slay some evil warriors. While some of the other tracks like Eventide, Blood Moon, and The Looking Glass use hooks in a more darker and dramatic way. Now, the production is pretty bombastic, which is to be expected whenever you hear anything with symphonic elements on top. Although, the two complaints I would have with the production, I wish the bass was more prominent, and I wish the snare would have had a little more punch to it. But the riffs, you do get catchy riffs pretty much all throughout the album. The lead work, not always about being flashy or technical. They do a great job. Thomas does a great job at providing tasteful melody and a little bit of shred to show off like, hey, I have chops, but not in a technical, flashy way. Drum work was solid, primarily revolved around like gallops and D beats at times, but with some groove. And the fills were really solid, same with the turnovers. The strings, the symphonic orchestral moments, I don't mind that stuff when it's done right, when it complements everything that's going on musically. And the vocals, not cheesy. In fact, they were epic vocals. Tommy is a very solid vocalist. I don't think he's as good as Roy Khan, but he's damn near close. So overall, as far as anything complaint-worthy about the songs themselves, well, maybe a complaint about the album. I feel like it was maybe a little bit too fat. Like, they should have had a couple of songs, you could have trimmed them down or taken a couple of songs out to kind of make the album feel not as bloated. And also, like I said, the little production gripes I had with the bass not being quite as prevalent and the snare, wishing that the snare would have been a little more punchy. But overall, I really enjoyed this album. I actually am going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. I thought this was some really good stuff. Then again, it seems like the power metal stuff I have been checking out here on this channel have been really good because they're not overly cheesy or overly, like, super classical or technical inspired. It was more about using some symphonic elements to just complement the guitars, bass, and drums rather than overtaking everything. And these vocals, especially on this album, not cheesy, but done in an epic way, and it was great. So yeah, 8.5 out of 10 for The Awakening by Kamelot. But of course, this is just my opinion. What did you guys think of The Awakening by Kamelot? Let me know in the comments section below. And until next time, you people out there, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.